What's the story, Morning Glory? What is the word, hummingbird? Thank you so much for clicking on my channel and for joining me for this quick conversation about marriages in crisis. So let's start talking about Angelina Jolie and Brad Pitt. As we all know, the history of Angelina Jolie and Brad Pitt is extremely interesting, right? Back in 2005, at the time, Brad Pitt was married to America's sweetheart, Jennifer Aniston. At that time, Jennifer Aniston was on the extremely popular show Friends. She was the kind of girl that a lot of people all over the world either wanted to know, wanted to be with, wanted to look like, wanted to emulate. She was just that girl during that time. From the 90s into the 2000s, Jennifer Aniston was just that girl. And to top it all off, to put the icing on the cake, she got married to Brad Pitt, who was like America's heartthrob. He had those very chiseled boy next door kind of look. You know, they both look like typical Hollywood glam, very attractive couple. They both looked, middle America, very wholesome, very attractive, very Hollywood, and they look like a match made in heaven. So Brad Pitt and Angelina Jolie do this movie together around 2005 called Mr. and Mrs. Smith. Soon after that, Jennifer Aniston and Brad Pitt get a divorce, and Brad Pitt begins dating seriously Angelina Jolie. Rumors at the time that were circulating were that there was some type of like deep, intense chemistry between Brad Pitt and Miss Jolie. And possibly, allegedly, there could have been an affair that had started during the filming of Mr. and Mrs. Smith, so on and so forth. Who the hell knows? I don't know. But that was definitely a rumor at that time. So after the wrapping of the film and, Jennifer and Brad getting a divorce, he gets with Angelina Jolie. At the time, Angelina Jolie, I think she had probably had already adopted 2 or 3 children. So here she is, a single mom who had adopted these kids. And her history, very briefly, she was married to Billy Bob Thornton. Now, Billy Bob Thornton was like this country backwoods kind of guy who made it really, really big in Hollywood. And then he gets with Angelina Jolie, and it was sort of like a weird pairing. They were kind of like a very strange couple. You would never see, like, you wouldn't expect an Angelina to be with a Billy Bob, but here we were. That whole situation was a little bit unusual, but it's like, us regular schmegular people kind of just dismiss it as, oh, those Hollywood people being your typical Hollywood people. It's not making any sense to us, but whatever, we accept it. But it was a very strange type of coupling. They would walk around with vials of blood around their necks. Vials of each other's blood around their necks. It was very, very strange. And at the time, Angelina herself was kind of like a very mysterious and strange lady. Not just because she was married to Billy Bob Thornton, but also she had like a very interesting relationship with her brother. So I remember there was a lot of controversy that was going around at the time between Angelina and her brother, because at some award event, they had kissed on camera, and it was a kiss that you would not normally expect between siblings. I mean, it was a very intense kiss between Angelina and her brother. So I remember that was like, front page news. It was like such a big deal. Everybody was talking about it because it was very, very unusual. So she leaves Billy Bob Thornton. She gets with Brad Pitt, and I can only speak for myself. In my mind at that time, I was like, this is unusual. You have your typical boy next door who was married to your typical very pretty girl next door, but divorces her and gets with this very dark, mysterious beauty, this, Elvira looking beauty. And I was like, my mind was not really connecting the dots. It's like I just didn't see this happening at all. But because we all believe in fairy tales and we all want a happily ever after, whatever my mind did not want to accept, like my heart was like, yes, this is probably going to work because it's so strange, it's so unusual. Opposites attract. This could be a very beautiful love story, right? So he gets with Angelina Jolie. She has her children that she adopted. He had no problem with that, being with a woman who already had children, because him and Jennifer had no children at all. Brad Pitt himself had no children at all. So he gets with a woman with a ready-made family who's very weird, unusual, mysterious. We don't really get her. And we just assume, well, I just assume that, okay, maybe he was infatuated with her while they were doing this movie. She's something like nothing he's ever dated, ever experienced before in his life. So she's mysterious, she's dark, she's brooding, she's got those super succulent lips. And so maybe he was just like absolutely mesmerized by her, something that was not typical for him, because I think most of the women that Brad Pitt had dated have been very, typical, pretty, average looking type of women. I don't think he was ever with anybody who was as unusual as Angelina Jolie. So when they got together, it was an uproar. They get together, they stay together for a very, very long time without getting married. During their relationship, I think she adopted another child. I'm not sure if she adopted a child while she was with Brad Pitt. I think she did, but I'm not 100% sure. And on top of that, they end up having 3 biological children of their own. They finally tie the knot in 2014. All was not what it seemed, because in 2016, they end up filing for divorce. This divorce has been pending ever since then. I don't think that divorce is final. So reports have recently come out right now in 2022 about some very disturbing incident that took place back in 2016. So they filed for divorce around 2016, and what prompted Angelina Jolie to go file for the divorce was an incident that happened around that time on a private plane. So Angelina Jolie, Brad Pitt, and all of their children were traveling from France to California. During this flight, I'm going to have to assume that maybe Mr. Pitt had a little bit too much to drink, but there was an incident that occurred between him and Angelina Jolie. They got into some kind of altercation that started in the bathroom of the plane. Got into a very intense argument. It got physical. It went from the bathroom to, I guess, the main part of the plane. He ends up putting his hands on Angelina. Her children, some of them, they don't necessarily, it isn't the court documents and all the articles don't say which child, probably to protect the children. But some of the children attempted to protect their mother from Brad. Brad then turns his anger towards the children, and the report said that he had put his hands around some of the children's neck. He got really physically aggressive with some of the children, and in order to protect her children, Angelina began to basically try to get Brad off of her children by jumping on his back. So to get Angelina off of his back, he ends up slamming her against a wall. Like he rushes backwards, and he either slams her against a wall or against a chair on the plane. He slams her so severely to get her off his back that she ends up getting, pretty injured. Then it doesn't stop there. It gets even worse. So he's being aggressive with the children again. He's being aggressive with Angelina. Then he pours beer and wine on his wife at the time, pours beer and wine on the children. It's just a really ugly, ugly incident. Who knows what prompted it? It could be a number of things. He could have a very bad temper, a very horrible anger problem. It could have been some type of substance. It could have been alcohol. Who the hell knows what started this? Somehow or another, I think Angelina probably herself had reported it to authorities, but the FBI get wind of it. The FBI, they do their investigation, and they conclude that there is enough probable cause to take this case to the U.S. Attorney's Office. The U.S. Attorney's Office, in order to proceed with prosecution, they need Angelina to be on board 100% because she's probably going to be like the main witness. Angelina is on the fence about how, basically, whether or not she wants to cooperate with the U.S. Attorney's Office. According to the U.S. Attorney's Office, she was really wishy-washy. She couldn't make a definite stance as far as whether or not she was going to cooperate with their case. So because she was not 100% on board, they ended up dropping the case. So nothing really happened as far as prosecuting Mr. Pitt. Angelina, in her defense, says that the reason why she was hesitant about moving forward with the prosecution was because she was trying to protect her children. Her children probably were going to have to be called as witnesses at some point, and so she did not want her children to relive this really horrible, horrible, ugly moment. Now, the reason why this has come up is because Brad Pitt and Angelina have a winery together. They have a wine business together. And in this wine business, there's all of these contracts and agreements and whatnot. One of the things is that I guess if they should part ways, or maybe if they were together, or if they should part ways, or whatever the situation is, they were not allowed to sell their share of their share of this winery to anyone before consulting with the other partner. For example, if Angelina wanted to sell her share of the business to someone else, she would have to consult with Brad Pitt first. So according to Brad Pitt, Angelina ended up selling her share of the winery to a third party without consulting him. So that's what he's accusing her of, that she had broken the contract by selling her share without discussing without discussing with him first. Angelina's defense is that there was no way for them to have a conversation about this or any type of productive negotiations, because he was forcing her to sign a non-disclosure agreement where she would have to be legally bound to never discuss what happened on that plane back in 2016 outside of a courtroom. Because she refused to discuss that, negotiations completely broke down. So now they're currently in court with all of that mess. So they're still in court fighting for this winery business, and they're still in court fighting for custody of their children. Now, enough of all the legal stuff. This is the only thing that I have to say. I am shocked, absolutely shocked about these reports that came out about Brad Pitt. Not to say that I expected him to be some kind of an angel, because past the looks, past the public persona, we don't know these people. And evidently, the people that they're married to also don't know them. But I still was shocked to hear that it got that bad. All of these are allegations. It's all alleged. Who knows if it's true or not? I don't know. But from when I was reading these reports, I was like, oh my God, Brad Pitt was wilding out like that on his own family. Truth be told, it seems like for a while, I could be wrong because I'm not like all over, this family like that. But it seems like whenever I would come across photos of this family, I would mainly see Angelina. She would be the main parent that would be with the children. Obviously, I'm assuming that they probably live with her more than they live with Brad Pitt. But it seems like there's like a disconnect or some type of a distance between Brad and his children. And I don't know if it's, maybe he's just not one of those people that really cares about taking photos or whatever with his children in public. I don't know. I don't know if Angelina is like interfering with him having access to the kids, or if the kids just don't want to be around him because of this incident that happened back in 2016. And who knows if there's been any other incidents. But every time that I see photos of these children, they're always with Angelina. And I always felt like there was some type of a disconnect or some kind of distance between Brad Pitt and his own children. And I always kind of had this nagging feeling that he probably wasn't even that close to the children that Angelina had adopted. I always felt that way. And I think in the very beginning, there probably were pictures of Brad Pitt with the two older boys. Maybe there were, I don't remember, but I know for sure that I see way more pictures with Angelina and her children than I do with Brad Pitt and their children. So I wonder what's going on there. But this divorce has been pending for 6 years. They've been battling it in court for 6 years. Absolutely insane. The only thing that I'm concerned about, obviously, is the children, their mental and emotional health, what they've been through. I hope they just keep it cute for the kids' sake. But Brad Pitt, if these allegations about you are true, shame on you. Shame on you. And I really want to know what Jennifer Aniston thinks of all of this. I've always wanted to know. Obviously, we will never know. I will never know. But I'm always curious. Like, I wonder what Jennifer Aniston thinks about all of this. Moving on to Tom Brady and Gisele Bundchen. Okay, Tom Brady and Gisele Bundchen. He is, the superstar NFL athlete. He was the quarterback, I think. Was he the quarterback of the New England Patriots at some point? I don't know. I'm not into football. I really can't say. But he is the current quarterback of the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. So his wife is Gisele Bundchen, international supermodel, international Brazilian supermodel. They've been married for about 13 years. They got married in February of 2009. They have two kids together. Tom Brady also has an older child with Bridget Moynihan. He is the highest paid NFL player at about, I think his contract was for $250 million. He's also one of the oldest NFL players at the age of, he's somewhere in his mid 40s. So back in March of 2022, this is when, we started hearing a lot about this couple. Back in 2022, Tom Brady decided to retire from the NFL. He was gone for a whopping 40 days before he ended his retirement and came back into the NFL. There was a lot of rumors that Gisele Bundchen was not happy about him returning back into the NFL. Rumor had it that for years she had been wanting him to quit the NFL and spend more time with the family. So when he retired, I guess she was happy. I'm not exactly sure, and I'm so interested to know in what was the breaking point for him. Like on that 40th day, what the hell happened where he was like, you know what? I can't do this. This retirement life is not for me. I want to get back into the game. I wonder what drove him back to that. I have my opinions. So he goes back to the NFL, and ever since then, there's been story after story after story that Gisele Bundchen allegedly is not happy, extremely upset that he went back to play football. They had some big blowout fight. Now, evidently, they're living in separate homes. During that horrible hurricane in Florida, Hurricane Ian, they were not even together during that time. They were in separate homes. And supposedly, the newest report that has come out on all of the blogs is that they are both looking for attorneys. Sources close to the couple are saying that this is a done deal. This marriage is over. It is dead in the water. There is no way to resuscitate it. It's dead. It's gone. And so now it's just about the filing of the divorce, dealing with the custody of the children, and of course, the division of property. They have a $26 million property portfolio. So yeah, this is going to be it's not going to be pretty. So this is another situation, another marriage that I was kind of like, what? Huh? Tom Brady and Gisele Bundchen, I never really was a huge, who cares what I think, right? But this is my opinion. I never really was a huge fan of this union. It was unusual to me. Gisele Bundchen to me seems like a very headstrong, opinionated kind of woman. And she's not one of those shrinking violet supermodel. She's not one of those type of women, that is like, just there for show. I feel like she's very opinionated. She has a lot to say. She speaks her mind, and she expects things to go a certain way. I think in that relationship, I really do believe that Gisele Bundchen probably is the more dominant one. I think that Tom Brady, even though he is this major athlete, major football player, very successful at what he does, very accomplished athlete, I feel like when he's at home with his family and with Gisele, he doesn't get much rest. I think she runs him down to the ground. I think she's extremely, this is just my opinion. I could be wrong, but I just get the feeling that she's very bossy, very demanding. And I think that he could only take 40 days of that home life. And then he was like, I'm out. I'd rather go get knocked around on the field at my old age of 44 or 45 years old, being one of the oldest players in the NFL. I'd rather get knocked around on that damn field than live in this home with this woman. I really do feel that way. I don't know why. Something about Gisele Bundchen rubs me the wrong way. I remember when when she had her first child, she was like a big proponent for breastfeeding. Fine. So am I. Great. But I felt like she kind of really took it too far. She was like extremely militant about it. And it was kind of those situations where she kind of acted like she was the first woman ever on earth to breastfeed her child. And like she discovered breastfeeding. And that rubbed me the wrong way. I remember that very distinctly. I was like, okay, girl, shut up already. You breastfeed your child. Wonderful. So have other millions and millions of women for millions and millions of years all over the world. You did not discover breastfeeding. You did not invent breastfeeding. Have a seat. And I feel like if it was another type of relationship, Tom Brady would have stayed in retirement because he doesn't need to play. He doesn't need to play. I understand he loves the game. I get it. But at this age, he does not need to play. And I don't think he was running to the NFL. I think he was running away from something else. I think he was running away from something else. I really, really do. And he doesn't seem like the kind of person that needs the attention or that needs the money. He's the kind of guy where he would be making, still making millions and millions of dollars as a NFL retiree. So obviously he's not back for the money. He's not back for the attention. He's not back for the fame. He wasn't running to anything. He was running away from something. And so he decided to get back in the game. He decided to get back in the game. To me, this was always like a strange coupling. I think that Gisele Bundchen has a very dominant personality. She seems like kind of like alpha female. And you have an alpha. I just don't think that this was the right match for Tom Brady. They've been married for 13 years, so it is a very long stretch, for people like this, very famous people. I'm not going to say Hollywood people because she's a supermodel and he's an athlete. They're not actors, but that level of fame, that's a long, long stretch. So we'll see how this works out. But supposedly they have already hired attorneys. They're living in separate homes. And, let's just pray for the children that this doesn't affect them too damn negatively. I'm a little bit not surprised that Tom Brady is having marital woes because, like I said, I don't know. I just never really saw them like as a really good match together. Moving on. Tia Mowry and Cory Hartig, 14 years married. Tia Mowry announced on her social media recently that I think it was today, right? Was it today or yesterday? She announced on her social media that her and her husband, Cory Hartig, are going to be going their separate ways. She ended up filing for divorce. The reason that she put in the documents, irreconcilable differences. Back in 2015, Cory was being interviewed and he was telling the story of how he and Tia Mowry met. He said at the time he was a struggling actor. This was back in 2000. They got married in 2008. So somewhere in the early 2000s when they had met. He was a struggling actor, going from job to job, just trying to make it. He was doing all kinds of, odd jobs to pay the bills, but he was struggling. And he was at a bus stop. So Tia and her sister Tamara were driving by. They saw him at the bus stop. They hollered at him, asked him if he wanted a ride. He said yes, and they have been friends ever since. So from that encounter, they were friends. I read that they were like really good friends for like a year. Then they began dating. They dated for a few years, and then they got married. They have 2 children together, Cree, age 11, Cairo, age 4. And let me say this about Tia Mowry and Cory Hartig. There is a clip that's been circulating, I think, on the internet, and I've seen it today. And in this clip, this is when, they were married. And in this clip, they're being interviewed as a couple. Cory Hartig is telling he's talking about relationships and, marriage, relationship. They're having a conversation about that, the ups and downs of marriages. And as he's talking, Tia interrupts him to say something. And in like in a split second, there was like this flash of anger. And he's like, let me finish. Like his teeth clenched, mouth pressed, lips pressed, like this flash of anger because, she interrupted him. And that to me kind of was like telling a little bit. I always kind of felt like Cory Hartig was a little bit rough around the edges. Tia Mowry and her sister Tamara, they both seem like very, very sweet, lovable, silly, easygoing, down to earth, kind of people. And Tamara, her husband, I forget his name, but her husband to me seems to be kind of like maybe a better matching for a personality like Tamara. And whenever I would see Tia and Cory together, I never got that. Tia to me seemed like, sunshine, happiness, trying to be positive. And then Cory to me kind of seemed like doom and gloom a little bit. He just seemed to kind of, I don't know if it was his facial features or what, but he just seemed kind of like tense. So I was really surprised that they lasted as long as they did. I was really surprised about that. But that marriage also is over. And she posted on Instagram, of course, you know how it is. People and their cryptic messages. She did post a very direct message. She announced that her and Cory were going to go their separate ways. They'll always be friends, focusing on co-parenting, the usual. But she also posted on Instagram, and this is what she said, and I quote, "Letting go won't be painful, but it won't hurt as much as holding on to an illusion." What illusion, girl? What illusion? What trickery and fakeness did you encounter in your husband? What illusion are you referring to? He in turn posted something on Instagram as well, where it said, "Acting on emotions will cost you every time." Acting on emotions will cost you every time. That made me think that he had some type of a outburst that he couldn't control, and that was her last straw. Because Cory to me seems like someone who's probably quick tempered. And maybe there was also some feelings of insecurity on his part, that his wife was a whole lot more successful, had a whole lot more revenue coming in. Maybe that also kind of affected him. I don't know. But he always seemed really tense. And it just didn't make any sense to me for someone like him to be with someone like Tia, who to me was like very sweet, lovable, open, outgoing, constantly happy, a smile on her face, looked like she's always in a good mood. And that could have been all a show. Maybe behind closed doors, she's just as tense and moody and gloomy as he is. I don't know. But from what I could see, what they presented to us, it always seemed like Cory was a little bit like, like he was always not happy. Let's just pray for the children and hope that everything goes well for the kids. Also, I wanted to mention all of these marriages because I watch another YouTuber by the name of It's Rocks, and she always talks about the 7-year itch. Like every 7 years in a relationship, you face some challenges. And a lot of times, people will end up getting divorced or separating, whenever that 7-year cycle rolls around. So that probably really doesn't apply to Angelina and Brad because they got married in 2014, filed for divorce 2016, but they had been together since about 2005. And so all together, they've been together for about, I think it was, how many years is that? 2000. Okay, so they got married in 2014. No, they got married in 2014. They're still legally married. They filed for divorce in 2016. It's still going on, so that really doesn't apply to them. But for Tia and Cory, they were married 14 years. So that first 7 years was fine. That second 7 years, they struggled. Tom Brady and Gisele Bundchen, 13 years. So around that 14-year mark, they were struggling. So It's Rocks. Girl, you might be right. You might be onto something about that 7-year itch. That is all that I have to say. Not much. Just, jibber jabbering over here. Thank you so much for joining me. I really do appreciate it. On your way out, don't forget to rate the video. And if you like this content, please subscribe. And I will definitely talk to you later. Bye.